Hello and welcome. I'm going to continue doing some game programming with Tetris in Odin and the Raylib library. And today is the third stream. So where we left off last time is that we have a play field of about the dimensions that the Tetris guideline specifies, or at least the Tetris wiki has specified that most Tetris games use, which is a 10 by 20 playfield. And what we currently have is we have something where it will show you what cell you are currently at with the mouse, where this is a 0, 0, and this would be 9 and 19, or 10 over and 20 down. So just for testing, I made a thing where you could draw blocks within the playfield. So you could draw any blocks you want. And I made it so you can move tetraminos around with the arrow key and also switch to different tetraminos using the keyboard keys that correspond with each of the tetraminos. However, I made an error and I completely forgot the T. Oops, and let me move actually, let me just move this. So the purple T, we forgot. So I'm gonna write that down as something that we need to do. So in the to do, actually let me just write it over here. So add the T. And then one other thing I wanted to do today might be a bit of a boring stream, but I just kind of wanted to finish, I guess, the basics of creating tetramino descriptions. So what I wanted to do was add some type of color field, and then what I also wanted to do was make it so that when placing the tetramino blocks in the playfield, that we will make the blocks the colors that they're supposed to be. Okay, so what do we have right now is that you can move the tetramino around and press enter, and it will place the blocks in the playfield, but for right now it just sets it to red. But we want not only the tetraminos to not all be blue, but we want them to be their own color, and we want that when you place them in the playfield that they will be the color that you expect it to, like you see here on this screen. So let's go over here. So when placing the tetraminos, we want the color. And one other thing I think I want to add is just the ability to have rotations of the different tetraminos, so that we'll have some button to press that will rotate them around to their different rotations. And how we're likely going to do that is, so we have the tetramino shape descriptions right here that you can see in the game. So right now I'm moving around the eye piece, so we see the eye right here, and all the others are defined with local tetramino coordinates, and then they're transformed in the playfield wherever the position of the current active piece is. So what we are likely going to do in order to facilitate that is literally every tetramino shape description will have 4 entries for each rotation that they could be in. So yeah. So like these. So we'll literally have an entry for each of these rotations for each of these pieces. That's how we're going to do it. And one other thing I just want to do really quick, and this is more like a meta thing, I suppose, than an actual thing, is see-through window. So like a transparent, it'll be like a little bit transparent. Because I don't like having to keep bringing this up and then go back to the code, and I don't necessarily want to move my windows around. I don't necessarily want to make the code editor smaller. So we're going to make the window see-through transparent and appear on top most. So it will always appear, and then we'll have a way that we could toggle that on and off. And I think that will actually be probably the first thing we do today. So let's get started with that. So in my game loop, I'm just going to have some button to toggle that, and I will have some way to keep that state. So so to keep that state, and again, I don't know if this is the best way to do this, because maybe I could just go in and flip the flags, but I'm just going to keep a value for now. So this will be show window see-through or transparent. Let's do it as transparent, and that will initially be set to false. And then within here, if is key pressed, and I'll just set it to F1 now, I suppose, as a function key, and we will make this so if show window as transparent. So if it's already that, we want to set that to false, and then I'm also going to set some window flags there. Else if it's not, we will set this to true, and then also set whatever window flags it needs to be. Like I said, don't know if that's the best idea, but that's the first approach that I will take right now. Set config flags, or is it window flags? Set window, is it? Yeah, I think it's set config flags, and then let's see if they'll show up here. So window resizable, undecorated, hidden, maximized on topmost. And we want window mouse pass through, window transparent. And I think that that is what we will want. And if it's not, I'll look at some old code I did to see what I was doing. So set window config flags. Is there a remove window? No, there's not a remove window config flags. Config flags. Get config flags. Let me see what I was doing in another project. I think that is what we want, so I will build that, close that, build that again, and then we're going to run it and see if that takes shape. Okay, so cool. So now our window is transparent so that I could keep the editor open and move through it and have the game open without having to worry about positionings of windows as much. So let's just make sure that that goes back. Yep, that is good. We can click off of it. And when we're here, if we click on here, it will stay at the topmost window. Okay, so that is a to-do done for right now. Now we want to add the T because I forgot the T. I don't know how I forgot it, but I did. So we'll add the T here to a tetramino. And then we will add the shape description for the tetramino. So there are 4 blocks in the tetramino, and it will be a coordinate of integers, so 2 ints. And let's look over here. So the T, yep, it's laying flat. So the first one will, not that one, over here. So the first one will, actually let me do, so 0, 1, and then let me move that one down. And then over here, And then this one will be 1, 0. Okay. And yeah, I like to just draw it in the way that they appear. So this will be 1, 1. And this will be 2, 1, I think. And we're just going to add that quickly to our key press to active piece set. So T, and we'll make that a T. And then we're going to close this guy, build it again, run it again. And let's see if the T works, and the T works. And now we have a T piece. That's cool. So next question is, so let's get rid of that. We added the T. And then we want the pieces to have a color, and the way we're going to start, and this is just like kind of the active moving piece that will have the color, and then we'll make it so that when you put it in the playfield, the playfield stays that color. So in order to do it right now in our Tetris shape descriptions, we just have the coordinates describing the shape. But now what we want to do is also have the description of the tetramino, the definition to also hold color information. So I'm just going to make tetramino description, and this will be a struct. And what this will have is this will have the shape. So I think I'll just call it like that, the shape. I don't know if that's the best one. I might want to call this blocks instead because it's made up of those blocks, but we will just call it shape for now. And then it has a color, and I'm either going to make it an Raylib color, or I might just make it a 4U8 because kind of at some point I want to isolate the game from Raylib in the hopes that maybe we could make this independent of Raylib and then target different platforms directly, more as like a learning experience. So I think I'm going to make it 4U8s from now and then transpose it to a Raylib color. But yeah, that's what we'll do for now. Okay, so instead in here, what we want to do is do that, and we'll make this a tetramino description instead. And then for all of these, so I'm just going to select each of these that I have and do something like this, I think, because this will be the full tetramino description. And then the first thing will be the shape equals that. And then I will select this guy. Oops, no, don't want to do that. Let me just figure out what I'm even attempting to do before I try mass bulk editing things. So that definitely, that's the shape. And then the next thing I want is the color. And we will say that the color is, you know what, for now I will just use the Raylib. For now I will just use the Raylib colors because I don't want to have to think right now about the RGB values or think about pulling the Raylib macros over here. So that's what we'll do. And this one will be, so the O is a yellow, so it'll be yellow. And then we want to do that for all the rest of them. So first let's do this, that, this one, and that one. And then under all of these, we want to just do that. And also add the color. And then this one will be a sky blue, I think. So now we actually have the shapes as well as the colors recorded here. So what we're going to do is I'm going to build it and just fix wherever I got issues. So can I enter it over the shape descriptions? And actually, I probably want to change this, not the shape description, but just Tetramino descriptions. So let me go anywhere that is, and then in here, get rid of that. And then what I want to do is anytime I see this, I want that to be the shape. Let's see if that builds correctly. Okay, so that's good. Let's just run it and make sure that it still works. Okay, it still works. And then what we want to do is, instead of just drawing them all as sky blue, is that we want to draw them as, so 4 block pause in Tetramino descriptions, active Tetramino. I am just going to do the active Tetramino and the color of the active Tetramino, and we'll do that. Okay, so that's there, that looks good. L, J, T, Z. So Z, T, S, O, L, J, I. The J and the I look a little too... No, they're fine. They're fine for now. Okay, so that's cool. So now we got the color, and now what we want to do is, when placing the Tetramino blocks in the playfield, we want to place their color there instead of red. So how this is currently working is, if we go to our playfield, it's really the playfield state. It's literally just a two-dimensional array of width and height, and every cell is just represented by a boolean that's on or off. And then when we're drawing it, if it's on, we just draw whatever color is we just draw red. We just draw red for every place it's on. And what we want to make it right now is that maybe instead of a boolean, it holds the active as well as, so it holds a boolean as well as the current color that you want it to be. I think that's what we'll do for now. I think that's what we'll do for now. So we'll just call that cell state. And the cell state, just like I said, it will be an active bool, and then it will have a color also of Raylib color. And instead of these being all booleans, we will make them cell states. And any place we were doing some business with it, so let's get to any place we're doing business, and that would actually be the active that we want to set to true or false. And when we draw, if the active is true, we want to draw. And actually, since we're drawing, I am just going to pull it out here for no other reason than pulling it out. And then this would be cell color. And then when we set it, so when we press enter, because how we have it right now is just when you press enter, it will just copy paste the, well, not copy paste. It'll take the position, the local positions. It'll take these local positions and then wherever the tetramino position to place, I'll call this like active tetramino position, maybe. I don't know if that's what we want to call it, but it's basically the one we're moving around. It's the one that is moving around, and then when you press enter, it places it in the playfield as red. So let's make sure build. Something went wrong. Okay, so we need to make this active as well instead of just setting that to true. Okay, let's run that again, and it looks like it works. Oops. Okay. It's those things are getting set to active, probably, but the color's not getting set now. Because before we were just drawing every active one as red, but now we actually need to not only set the active to red, but the playfield state here, we want the color to get set to the active tetramino color. And let's see if that works. So now if we press enter, okay, cool. So now we are able to place tetraminos in the playfield and have their color actually put the color in the playfield there. T, yeah, we'll put the T there. Okay, that's cool. And that's starting to look already way more like Tetris. Am I missing any? Yeah, we'll put the J and the L in there just for good measure, so we could get a nice view of all of the tetraminos together as a happy family. Okay, so let's mark that off the to-do. Placing the tetramino, blah, blah, blah. So, one thing I want to do real quick is probably make the offset of the playfield different. I think I'm going to actually want to place it more in the center of the screen. So the playfield position, we'll do the math to get the center of the screen. Or actually, I think the playfield position will actually set to the screen center, and then when we go to place it and draw it, actually no, I'm just going to do the math up front and then think about that another time. Okay, so let's calculate the playfield width in pixels, I guess, because that's what we want to capture right here. And that would be the playfield width times the cell size. And then the playfield height in pixels is the playfield height times the cell size. Okay. And then the playfield position will essentially be this. So it will be the screen width as a float. So that's like literally the entire screen over to this side. Well, not this screen, but the screen of the Tetris window. This window, it will be over here. And we want to minus it by the width in pixels divided by 2. Hopefully that math checks out and makes sense, but let's do that again with the height, and then if it works correctly, I will explain what is going on here as far as this particular type of transformation goes. Okay, that did not work at all. Minus playfield width in pixels divided by 2. And let me actually draw the playfield position so we can see where it is. So I'm just going to draw this as a circle. Draw circle V, so the playfield position. And I'll just make it a 5, and I'll make it red. And let's get rid of that. Okay, so it is getting placed there. But that is definitely not where we want it. So let me just check the math to see what is up with that. Screen width, the screen height minus the playfield height in pixels divided by 2. Cell size. Let me. Oh, let's just inspect in the debugger and see what the heck is going on. Okay, so the pixel width, the playfield width in pixels is 240 and 480, and the screen width is 1280 and 720. So the playfield position ends up being at what? Oh, duh. This needs to be divided by 2 as well. So it's actually in the center of the screen. All right, and let's run that. Okay, cool. So now it's actually in the center of the screen, and all things are good. And what essentially that is doing there, and I'll just explain this for completion, is this is the screen, and this is the playfield, let's say, or actually the playfield would probably be more like that. And a cell is what, like 24? So the cell size is 24. And then the width, I'll just use the width to show this. So the width of the playfield is 10 because it's 10 cells. And a cell size in pixels is 24. So that would be 240, right? And what I'm essentially saying, now the screen width right now is 1280. And what I am saying is right here, so this divided by half would be 640. So it would take us right here, 640. Now we don't want to start drawing the playfield here because then it will look like that. We want the playfield to be drawn like that. So we take half of 240, which would be 120, and we shift it over. So from here, shift it over to 120. So this is where it will start drawing. And then we draw the playfield here. So it actually gets shifted over to the top corner and then drawn, because the playfield will start drawing at the top left corner of the playfield. Okay. So let's go back to the to-do. And the last thing is that we want to have the rotations of the different tetraminos. So this one might take some time, and I probably will not talk through so much of this because it's a bit tedious, but we'll see. But I want to go in here. Well, I guess first, the tetramino descriptions, we essentially, instead of like just a singular shape, we want this to house 4 states that it could potentially be in for each of these. So how exactly do I want to do that? So first I'm going to make a enum for the rotations, and I'm going to name them how the Tetris sort of wiki defines them. So I won't really use terms like, 90 degrees, 180 degrees, whatever. I'm just going to use it how this talks about it, so I can reference it easy for me. So the rotations would either be 0, right, left, and 2. That is what we'll call them. And how I think we want this is that rotation shapes, I don't know. We'll figure that out. But this will be rotation. So for each of these rotations, it will have blocks in tetramino and then the 2 int. So at least for me, this is getting to a point where it is difficult for me to quickly grok at it right now. So tetramino shape, and I might like clean this up if I don't end up liking it, but we'll do that. And what this is basically doing is this is kind of like a type def in Odin, where I'm saying like tetramino shape is, there's 4 blocks in a tetramino, and then it's made up of these positions. This is also one of those situations where I'm really not sure if this is like valuable or good or beneficial or whatever. It's just kind of what comes to mind. So for each of these tetramino descriptions, we want not only the shape, but the rotations. So the rotation shapes. Okay. And this will be 4. So let me actually change real quickly this to what I had specified. So tetramino shape. And then all of these shapes we will end up calling rotation shape, what was it? Rotation shapes. And then we want 4 of those rotations. So I'm just going to do it to the O first, because the O, as far as I could tell, is that all the O's are essentially the same. So that would just be copying it 4 times. So we'll do this. So equals, and then rotation. And then we want the first one to be the 0 equals that. 0 equals that. And then we'll want to do this for all of them. Okay, so let me copy this guy. Again, we're just going to verify that this works for the O. And then we'll check for the others. So what was it? Right, left, and then 2. And let's see if this is saying expected a type, rotation tetramino shape. Okay, so that looks good. And then this is the part where we want to get all of these to look like that. So I am going to probably do one of those Sublime macro thingies to figure this out. So if I come here, okay, I think I have my plan. So let's do this. Rotation, Tetramino shape, and then I'm going to go down one, all the way over to home, right 0, space equals space Tetramino shape, and then I am going to do, and I actually don't think this will work. Dang it. As a macro, but it will. Tetramino shape. And I don't think it'll work because I wrote these all out differently, but it might work for these. Essentially what I'm trying to do is record a Sublime keystroke, I guess, and then redo it on all of these to save time, but I might be wasting more time thinking about it. Okay, so let's actually just end it because I don't think it'll work for the rest of them. So in this Tetramino shape, we want those guys, we want that, okay. And we also want the rest. And what I'm going to do for now is just copy these ones here, and then I'll go in and actually edit the correct values that those need to be. So I think that recording trick might work here. So let's do that. Okay, and then down and enter that, and then Q. And let's see if that will work for these. So if I go here and then I do Control Shift Q, okay, I think that got it. I don't like that it's messing up the shape, so I'm just going to kind of do them all manually, and it might stink, but it's okay. I have no idea what I'm doing. Alright, and then we want to go copy these to all of these guys. So now we actually have to go in and edit all of these to be what they should be. And I think what I'll actually want to do here, I'm not totally sure. So let's event this. How guideline really works is I'm just trying to figure out now how these should actually be positioned in here, especially for that eye. I think I'm going to try copying these. So the eye will actually be a bit different. Dang it, I went in the wrong direction. Let's get rid of this. Actually, we could theoretically sort of verify that this is working. So we have the active tetramino, the active tetramino position, and then we want the active tetramino rotation, and this will be a rotation. And and this will be 0. And you could probably see how we're already starting to get what may be another struct that we will end up pulling these guys out into, because they'll probably be used a lot together to represent the active tetramino. Okay, so the initial rotation is 0, and then what we'll want to do is have some way to rotate it. Maybe Q and W, I suppose. So yeah, let's do that. Q pressed, Q. So we will do something like, and we're just going to go through all the rotations. So rotation I, and I'm just going to cast that from the active tetramino rotation. And what I'm doing is I'm making the enum be represented as an int so that I can minus it and then mod it, and then I guess cast it back to what it needs to be. Rotation I, then minus equals 1, and then rotation I mod equals the length of a rotation. So that would be 4, like there's 4 rotations. And then what we're going to do is active tetramino rotation, and then we'll cast it back to a rotation. So the rotation I, and we'll call this new rotation I. And then else if RL is key pressed, and then W, we will do that, but in the opposite direction. Oops. Word wrap is confusing me. Okay. And I think we could sort of start to verify that this is working if we switch to the I, and then let's just finish the I and then fix up the code that is referencing this so we can actually pull this out fine. And then after we do that, then we should be in good shape and we'll stop for today. So this guy will just move all these over. So 0, 1. Is this yes? Yes. I always get so confused with X and Y. We'll just get rid of this guy, move it up here, and then make this a 0. So we'll just verify that the I is working correctly. Let me just build this to get some errors going there. So we could go in and pull all of these so that, and then this will be rotation shapes, and then the active tetramino rotation. Let's see if that builds, and that is fine. And we'll go back here. Okay. Now let's go to that eye, and we will try rotating it. Okay, so now the eye is rotating, and you see where my mouse cursor is sort of like the focal point where it's rotating around. So we got rotations, and it works in both directions. Cool. All right, so at this point, for the rest of the stream, I am just going to make all the shapes happy and in their places. So I'm probably not going to talk through that. And then on the next stream, I'll probably actually go in and start to clean up all of this stuff, since there's a lot of places that we're looping over all of these. And then I will probably somehow compress this stuff too, since we're doing similar things but in different directions here. But yeah, for the rest of it, I am just going to not do anything terribly exciting. And I will actually verify that they seem to be working. With each one. So it won't be completely boring. I'm not the only one seeing that, right? Right. Last, but 100% not the least, the T. Because the T is probably the most important shape in the game, from what I have heard. I have heard lots of awesome things about the T. For instance, the T-spin and the mini T-spin, which are ways that you could utilize the T-piece to earn extra points when you rotate it while placing it at the same time. And you could earn a lot of points and also use it in two-player mode to send more garbage to the other side. As far as I understand, if my understanding of Tetris is accurate, all right, let's build that. And lastly, hope that the T works. And the T works just fine and dandy. And look at that, it actually places. I thought we would need to like do something special in order to I thought we would need to do something special in order to get the rotations to go in correctly. But I guess we already covered that, and I did that without even realizing it. Let's get the S maybe, rotate it like that. Yeah, look at that. That is really cool. you're starting to see Tetris take shape before our very eyes. Can't forget about this piece. And are we missing any others? What ones are we missing? So we got the Z, the S, the T, the J, the L, the O, the I. Oh, we are missing the J. So there we go. And that will probably be the thumbnail for the video when I post this on YouTube. Okay. Well, I think that's enough for today. Thank you for watching. And last but not least, we will mark that as done and return to our beautiful Tetris clone. Oops. Whoa. We'll return to our beautiful Tetris clone next time. And I'm going to try to get a more steady schedule for this going. We'll see. All right. Thank you.